everybody, it's Kenneth Ramon here.
Eric Lawrence.
And today we are going to do a special video today. We thought it's the end of the year, right? So why not do something awesome? We're going to rank our top 5 favorite horror movies. These are mainstream horror movies of 2022.
Yeah, both of us love horror movies. There were a lot of good ones this year.
Yeah.
I think we're both, we've already looked at our list. I think we're both focusing on kind of big mainstream stuff, so I'm sure it's stuff most of you guys have already seen if you watch a lot of scary stuff.
But, a couple controversial ones too.
See. So let's just, I guess, get right to it.
Alright, so I'll go first. I wasn't sure if this was going to make my list, to be honest. And I have most of these movies that are in my list on physical media. As you guys know, I'm a big physical media collector. A couple of them I haven't picked up yet, just because I haven't come across them, and one of them just came out. But anyways, this one I did have to pick up. It says Halloween Ends. Now, this is very controversial. Some people either like it. I don't think anybody loves this movie. I think some people like it and some people really hate it. I'm kind of in the middle about it. But going back through all these movies, I felt like I really needed to include this in my top 5. Just because this was one that I was really anticipating. Right? And I really liked Halloween. Just Halloween 2018, right? And Halloween Kills, the David Gordon Green adaptations. And so I definitely wanted to check this one out. And this is a very different take. Now, from what I saw, kind of want to say, because this being the third in the series, kind of similar to Season of the Witch, kind of when I was watching it, most of this movie, I'm like, well, when's Michael Myers going to show up? It's a totally different take on it. And a totally different character that we've never even experienced before. There's this guy named Corey. Kind of looks like a young Patrick Dempsey. When I was watching it, I was like, so who is this guy? Because he's not even mentioned in the previous films. Why do we care, right?
They're following up the original movie, which came out, I think, in the mid-late 70s, right? So, realistically, Mike Myers is an old guy, So it makes sense that way. I don't have this one on my list, but I did actually really like it. I liked it more than a lot of people. And I think the first time I saw it, I didn't know what to make of it. Mm-hmm. I think like everybody else, I was like, why are we spending so much time with this Corey kid? And it wasn't a problem with, I don't think it was a problem with the acting. I thought the actors all did well and all that. But you're just, like Kenny said, when's Mike Myers going to show up? And even when he does show up, he pops up and then he's kind of out of the movie again.
Right.
And so the first time I saw it, I just didn't know what to make of it. Although, some of the kills in it are gnarly. No matter how you cut it, some of the kills are really gnarly.
Right.
And so then I went back and watched it a second time, and I kind of rewatched all 3 of them, all 3 of the David Gordon Green ones, and it worked a lot better than I realized. And that I think Green was trying to make this trilogy about this kind of contagion of evil.
Right.
That's been this running theme throughout it. Whereas the first one, Mike gets, there's the doctor guy who lets him out and everything. And the second one, you have the townspeople who are apparently good people, but they go mad trying to get Mike Myers. And then this one, you have it kind of rub off on Corey. And I just think that it really, there's that thematic consistency. Right. And I think when people talk about, you're focusing on new characters, that doesn't make sense in the final part of the trilogy. I think thematically it really works.
I like how you mentioned it, it's more about the town's reaction to evil itself and how they're being consumed by it. And after a while, that's how I just took it. I just watched the movie play out just as if it was separate from the Halloween universe. Kind of like Season of the Witch. That's how I was drawing lots of comparisons from that, because I was like, oh, okay, well, this is going to be its own thing, so I'm just going to watch it. And I was really digging it because I was I kind of had that psychological thriller type of movie that I was I think that's what they were going for. And here's I only have a little problem with it. I wish they would have kept going in that direction, but then after a while I felt they're well, shit, man, we already been through a good hour or so of this separate story. Let's give the fans what they want. Let's bring Michael Myers back in. Let's have some, and there were some really good kills in there. With the fire torch and things like that, and the DJ. That is
that was my favorite.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, I guess we won't spoil it for you. But that was my favorite gore scene right there. My favorite kill. Yeah. That's where I have some trouble with it, because I feel it's not as consistent. It's little after a while, they're like, okay, well, let's give the fans what they want, because, that's what most people want, that are going into like a Halloween movie. And I just wish they would have kept with that same story, And that's pretty much my only problem with it.
I agree. It does
feels like
feel
two movies
like
in one.
The final act is I think the final act's very well done in and of itself, but it does feel kind of like, okay, we have to wrap up this stuff with Laurie and Mike. That's what was promised. So I think that if you go into it with an open mind, I think it's a really good movie. I think they kind of promoted it the way they had to, I guess, but I see why it made people upset. You watch the trailers and it looks like, oh, this is a movie about Laurie and Mike chasing each other around, and then people got upset when I think, we've seen this enough time. We've seen enough of Laurie and Michael Myers, and I think that Green was determined to make sure, Mike Myers is just a guy.
This is the same, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this is the same reason why a lot of people are mixed on Rob Zombie's adaptation of Halloween, because he wanted to kind of cut that supernatural element out of it. So.
I think it works better without it, honestly, and I think that what Green realized, though, is that if he's just a guy doesn't have any sort of powers, or he's a guy that is just a human that can be killed, that only gets so scary. And in reality, if you read on the news that somebody got murdered, do you really get scared? Do you go to sleep at night thinking oh my goodness, I hope no, you're like, there's some asshole out there or whatever. But the idea that evil becomes contagious, and that it's that this whole town is affected by people, that gets actually, in reality, that would be scary. And so I think Green did a good job of kind of making him a much more organic and realistic type of character. Exactly.
So that we're not spending too much time speaking on one movie, that's the exact reason. Well said, Eric. That's why I enjoyed this movie so much. I just wish that it wasn't kind of like two different themes crammed together into one. Maybe they could have just made two separate movies. That would have been great. That's my only beef with it. Other than that, though, I felt like it was great. This is one that's going to be very divisive. I compare it to Rocky V. This is the Rocky V of the Halloween franchise. Mm-hmm. Either love it or hate it. But that is my number 5.
So my number 5 is X. Which I think is actually the most recent one I saw on my list. I loved this movie. It's basically it's a slasher movie. You got this crew of adult filmmakers that go into the woods, they get some cabin or something, and they're making their movie, but then it turns out there's a slasher running after them. So really great kind of setup. And so, I love classic slasher movies. I love the old Friday the 13th and Elm Streets, the old Halloween.
Yeah.
And this was just it felt like they wanted to make a good old school slasher movie, but it's actually made very well. A lot of those old Friday the 13th, as fun as they are, they're not exactly good movies. The actors aren't very good. The production values are 0. It's just, they're not very well done films. They're just kind of fun. Right. This, you can tell, somebody, this is an actual filmmaker, an actual actor trying to make just a really good slasher movie. So I was thoroughly entertained. I watched this one with my wife, and we loved it. We were thoroughly entertained for the whole thing.
The movie is so, because I've seen this movie too. It's on my list, as a matter of fact. But the movie sounds so silly when you try to describe what it's about. Mm-hmm. But when you watch the movie as a horror flick, it's just it's well done.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it.
It's just, everything is so well put together. It's so entertaining. A lot of it's really funny. I think the premise with having them be adult film stars is super cool, because there's always been this link between slasher movies and sex. Friday the 13th is he's born out of it. He's the counselors were being intimate, and that's how he drowned. And so
seems like a recipe of disaster.
It's always been part of it, and so they just found a unique way to kind of weave the slasher stuff into that by having that. And I'll also say that the lead actress in it, what's her name, Mia Goth, amazing. I hadn't seen her before. She does such a good job in the movie.
Yes.
So I loved it. The only reason it's my number 5 is I just didn't think it was that scary.
Yeah, it wasn't.
So it's not there's definitely a few spots where you might jump, and there's stuff, there's violence and stuff, but it's just not that scary. But it's such a fun movie. It's so well written, so well acted, it's so well put together. I loved it. And I know there's actually already a prequel out to it, which I haven't seen yet.
No,
Pearl, I have to see, which I mean, again, like an old school slasher movie where they used to make a Friday the 13th movie every they release one every year. They did them real quick. And so I think that they're trying to embrace the kind of spirit of those 80s slasher things while just doing it better. So I love that one. That's my number 5.
That one's my number 4. I love how you were like trying to read the actress name. Like, what's her name? Oh, there it is. Yes, I have to agree. I really did enjoy X, and I didn't know anything about it leading up to it. Like, I know some like movie critics that I follow, some like physical media collectors are like, you guys need to really watch this one. This is like a throwback to old school horror, and that's exactly what it is, man. When I was watching it, it definitely feels like something that could have been filmed in the 70s. And that's what they were going for, because it takes place in like 1979, I believe. Kind of like when video was kind of like starting to become a thing. So that's why you have the filmmakers and their little idea of like shooting like a dirty movie out in... I don't know why they chose, because this is like in the middle of the woods, right? Yeah. So it has like a very Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It has a very Friday the 13th type of feel, because like they start filming like their documentary out there. I guess kind of like, have you seen Cannibal Holocaust?
No.
Oh, okay, all right, he's in for something. No, don't watch that movie. But anyways, that's what it feels like, because like with the whole documentary aspect of it, and like they're shooting this documentary out in like the woods, and then you have like the people who own the property, they're older, right? And then like they're just like creeping up in the background, like just right there, you know something is up. And I don't know if I want to go I'm not going to go too spoiler territory in here, but if I were to describe everything in here, it sounds really comical. So but I really did enjoy this movie. And like Eric said, it's not like the scariest movie, but it's very rewatchable. And I kind of already want to watch it again. So really cool. That definitely had to make my list for number 4.
Okay, my number 4, I had Nope, which is Jordan Peele's third movie, right? Yeah. So of course everybody's seen Get Out, everybody's seen Us. Nope is I don't want to give anything away, but at the same time,
it's hard for this
at the same time, it's an entirely different thing, man. If you're expecting Get Out or you're expecting Us, it's a totally different animal. I think that just like the other ones, the actors are fantastic. It's very well shot. It's all 3 of Jordan Peele's movies, you can just totally accept at face value as a piece of genre horror. Yeah. You can look at it and not think about any of the sort of the allegorical stuff, the sort of social implications. You can watch it and just be like, this is a good piece of just genre horror, and really enjoy it at face value. At the same time, you do get a lot of stuff in there. You get a lot of stuff that's sort of thematically a little bit more weighty, and I think that's great. The reason it's number 4, not higher, I think halfway through the movie, I thought it was my favorite Jordan Peele movie. The first half I thought was amazing. I thought it was scary. It keeps you guessing. It's consistent. I think it's not a particularly like short movie, but like it feels like it goes by pretty quick. The first half I just thought was amazing. But like what happens, I think, with a lot of horror movies is once they kind of show their hand, once you kind of figure out what's going on, the movie gets a lot less scary and a lot less interesting. So that was sort of the issue with me. But I'll tell you that, again, the first hour is amazing. There's a subplot. I'm not going to give anything away, but there's a subplot involving a monkey that led to some of my favorite horror scenes of the year.
That scene creeps me out.
That stuff was just as spectacular. So the whole thing is just so well shot. It looks wonderful. The actors are great. Peele definitely makes an effort to make his characters act a little bit more like actual people would behave in these situations, Yeah, with that movie, and that one didn't make my list, but I did review that. So if you guys want to see my full thoughts on it, you go on my channel. It's somewhere in there. But going into it, like, I didn't know what to expect, like you said. So like the first like 20 minutes to an hour, I was really enjoying it, because it's like, wow, really keeps you on your toes. That suspense.
So and then once like it's revealed, you know, it does become less scary, but you're kind of in for an adventure type of thing. Kind of like, you know, Jaws, you know, like the first like half of it's like really scary because you don't see the shark and all that, and you don't know what's going on in the water type of thing. And then once they go out on sails to go after the shark, it kind of becomes like a fun,
totally different experience.
Kind of like a fun type of movie, and that's kind of like the same feel that Nope has, in my opinion. But yeah, kind of like more in like the sci-fi element without spoiling anything. But that's a good movie. I highly recommend it. So that comes down to we're at number 3. Okay, yeah. So my third one is Ethan Hawke in The Black Phone. Now, what did you think of this one?
I really like Black Phone's coming up on my list. I have it higher than 3, but I'll tell you, I really like Black Phone.
Yeah,
it's a story about a predator of children.
Yes, so, it's really hard to describe with this movie. It's so chilling, man. Like I'm telling you, like I wanted to rewatch a lot of these movies, like before going and talking about it, give it a second watch. This is one I couldn't go back to. Like, it was so unsettling for me. And, yeah, Ethan Hawke plays, like, you know, the kidnapper, but you never see his face in this movie. He's always wearing, like, that creepy, like, devil mask. And, like, his performance in this movie is really good. Like, here's, like, the cover so you guys can see it, like, in the back, too. There he is. And, like, the whole time, man, I was just... For him, like, especially, I was totally freaked out. Like... Yeah,
Ethan Hawke's a guy that I think tends to get kind of typecast a little bit as like that everyman, family man.
Exactly. We've never seen him do something like this.
I thought he was amazing. Now he does even in scenes where he's not really talking, just the way he moves and he's so good in this movie. I thought the child actors were great too. This is a movie that the main characters are children, right? And I think that anytime you're focusing on children characters, that the actors really have to do their thing, because it's easy for a child actor's performance to get kind of cringy. The children are all great. The main kid was wonderful. So it's just really well done, and it's scary. I mean, what's scarier than a guy that goes around preying on children? You know? So
I couldn't even watch it again. Like, just the thought of it. If I, like, really go into depth, like, thinking about this kind of stuff, and that's what makes this movie terrifying, is that it could actually happen, and it has happened, you know? And this movie, doesn't this one also take place in the 70s or something?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, it's probably based on, like, actual crimes that have happened, and one of the cool things about this movie, I'll tell you, and I just found out that, I don't know if you knew this, but Stephen King's son actually wrote this.
I didn't know that, no.
So, yeah, so that's why, like, there's, like, a whole supernatural element to it. I really like this because it felt like kind of like an It meets Saw, kind of, without the whole torture porn element of it. Because a lot of this movie is just, like, the kid, like, there on his own just trying to get out of this situation. And like how they went with the whole supernatural element too was really fascinating.
Another thing I'll say about that I really liked is they don't waste a lot of time trying to explain the kind of magical component. Like they give you just enough that it works, like it makes narrative sense.
Exactly.
But like they don't waste time trying to explain, well, this is exactly what's happening. Because in a movie like this, it's not an interesting way to spend your time, and it's like you can kind of fill in the blanks on your own. So I like that they kept that bit of mystery. They didn't have to have a ton of exposition, like just explaining.
That's kind of what makes the original Halloween so special, you know, because you don't know why he's chasing after them.
So my number 3 is Smile. I thought this one had some of the scariest moments I saw all year. It's impossible to say what this movie is about without giving anything away. But whoever decided that a smile in the right context can be a really scary thing, good for them. The movie, it has things in it visually that will just freak you out. Yeah. So we went to see this in the theater. I think I'd had a drink or two that night, but I was leaping out of my seat a few times. It's really good. The main actress in it, who's wonderful, is Sosie Bacon, who's Kevin Bacon's daughter, apparently. I didn't know that while I was watching it. While I was watching it, I thought, oh, this woman's great. Then you find out later she has that connection. But it's also, my understanding, is a first-time director, Parker Finn. I'd never heard of that guy, but based on this, I mean, maybe he's one that's going to be mentioned in the same breath with guys like Robert Eggers and Ari Aster, kind of this like generation of new directors that really are taking horror to the next level. But Just all around good performances. Like I said, really freaky visuals. Probably they're in another year. This might have been my number one, but there's two I like just a little bit more. But Smile, definitely one I highly recommend.
Yeah, for sure. And that brings me to my number two, and that's Smile as well, man. That one, I go into movies without checking out the trailers, knowing a little bit about it as possible. That one really took me by surprise, and it's got a really, really good kind of twist, kind of psychological. Like if you like psychological thrillers, I highly recommend this one because they kind of go a whole different route. Like the whole movie is focused on these creepy smiles, the beginning. And you want to talk a little bit about the opening sequence where she's in that hospital and how creepy it is. There's that the one patient that just is staring down the camera with that creepy smile.
Even if they didn't have any supernatural stuff in that, you have so much horrifying stuff happening. Yeah. But it's just real world types of things,
Right.
And when you kind of blur those lines a little bit, you're like, this is already a horrible situation, and then you introduce, the spirits and ghosts and that kind of shit. It just really, I don't know. It's just a way to make the audience uneasy before you even get into the real meat of the movie.
Right.
And so, Smile, like a lot of my favorite horror movies, there's scary stuff happening right from the opening bell,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's that opening scene, man. I was just so claustrophobic too, because you put yourself in that situation. Imagine just being in a room and there's that creepy and as a matter of fact, you guys, little side note here, I went to see Smile in theaters in an empty theater with someone I was working with. And it was the creepiest experience ever because I was just all alone, just me and this guy, right? And then this guy has the nerve to actually make smiley faces at me, and there was one time where he said he was going to the bathroom, right? So I was just wondering, when is this guy coming back, right? And then I was like, he's behind me, isn't he? And he's with that creepy smile on his face. So this movie has that type of effect, I'm telling you, where it just, I don't know, sends chills down your spine. And I know a lot of people have mentioned the whole jump scare aspect of this movie. I as someone who does not like jump scares and jump scares that are continuous, every 6 seconds something pops out of you. That's why I can't do the Paranormal Activity movies anymore. Kind of bugs me. But I feel like the jump scares were nicely done in this movie, and they were there for a purpose, And
I thought, now I know some people get really cynical about jump scares. I love jump scares.
Yeah.
But I thought this had some of there's not that many of them, but it had some of the most well done jump scares.
Yeah.
Things where you're like, oh, I
it wasn't cheap.
Quite like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't some guy just coming up across your shoulder. Hey, what you doing today? Type of thing. It's a lot of these horror movies do. But that was one I really liked, and Cal Penn is in this one. Kumar's in this one. He does an amazing performance in this movie, so definitely recommend this one as well.
Okay, so my two, we don't need to talk about it a bunch more, but it's Black Phone. One thing I didn't mention before, Scott Derrickson made this movie. He made Sinister, which is one of my favorite horror movies from the last decade or so, also with Ethan Hawke in a much more conventional role. And I just I'm so thankful that Derrickson's not doing Marvel stuff anymore. He did Doctor Strange. He's better than that. I'm glad he's doing these real movies, original premises, much more interesting. So really, again, just a great scary movie. So we want to do honorable mentions before we do the big one here?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll do my honorable mentions. I feel like people are going to click off this once they see mine, but now, the reason why this is an honorable mention is it's not a horror movie at all, but it's a movie that came out in Halloween time that I just had to pick up. Right when it came out, you guys saw, if you guys watch my other videos, I had to pick this one up. And this is one that's also very divisive in a way. It's like Halloween Ends. But I'm talking about Rob Zombie's The Munsters. Don't click off yet. You guys need to see my number one pick. Anyways, you guys, I actually enjoyed this, and here's I'm gonna give my 2 cents on it. This is for kids. This is a family friendly movie. It's nothing Rob Zombie's ever done before. like seriously, if you think like what? Okay, this is rated PG, but I say this could easily be a G. Like something like I want to compare it to like a Disney original movie that you would see on Halloween, you know, with the kids type of movie. And so like if you're expecting like, you know, Rob Zombie's, you know, House of a Thousand Corpses or Halloween, you know, you want to see like, you know, Munsters gone wrong. I'm sorry, but that's not what you're gonna get. But anyways, I felt like it was a pretty good adaptation. And one thing I really do enjoy about Rob Zombie is when he remakes movies, he puts his own twist on it. Now, a lot of people will either love or hate that. There's some people that are like really mad that, you know, he doesn't stay true to the original source material. But I kind of dig that. I dig like some originality in there, you know, and not just like trying to reinvent the wheel type of thing. And I really like what he went for in this movie. To kind of like summarize it, it's just kind of like an origin story about Herman Munster and Lily Munster, how they met type of thing, and like moving out of Transylvania and then moving into the suburbs. But it doesn't go that far. This is like a bona fide origin story here. And it's just fun. It's got wacky humor, lots of gags in there. It's very dry humor. Lots of dad jokes in there. This is something for kids. So that's like what I want to say. But it was a really good time. My only beef with it is that it's kind of long. I'm trying to see like how long the movie is. But I believe this was like an hour and 40 minutes. I felt like maybe like 20 minutes of this movie could have easily been cut. And but that being said, I really liked it. It's got a really cool color scheme in it. Feels like Halloween. This thing just screams Halloween, and that's why I love it. And reminds me of the Flintstones. You know the Flintstones with like John Goodman that came out in like '95. I'm sure people shit on that movie too when it first came out, but that's what it is. You know, it's just a movie not taking itself too seriously. It's just a fun, good time. So highly recommend this one. That's my honorable mention.
My honorable mention, which I almost wanted to put on my list, was Men by Alex Garland. If you don't know, Alex Garland, he did Ex Machina and Annihilation, which are both just great, great movies. This is his third thing. He also, I believe, wrote a bunch of the Danny Boyle stuff, like 28 Days Later, I think he was involved with. So anyway, this is his third movie that he's directing, though, and the premise, you basically have a woman that's getting out of this toxic relationship, and she just runs off into some house in the middle of nowhere, and she suddenly realizes that everybody in town is basically the same person. They're all the same man, who's played by Roy Kinnear, I think his name is, something like that. Anyway, he plays like 100 different characters in this movie, so it just goes crazy from there. This movie's weird, and it definitely has a lot of, again, a lot of thematic weight to it. I mean, it's a movie about abusive relationships, but at the same time, visually, things that are happening are very unique, just scary in that way. The first chunk of the movie really had us pretty freaked out. There's definitely some things that happen that are scary in ways that I think you haven't really seen things be scary before. The reason it's an honorable mention and didn't quite crack my list is to me, it just didn't stick the landing. It feels like it's kind of trying to do a bit too much. So I don't want to spoil anything, but I'll just say it kind of for me, it fell apart late. But you can expect it's not a super long movie. It's about an hour and a half. The first hour of the movie, some things that happen that are really creepy, and again, it has a tremendous amount of thematic weight to it too. I mean, like I always talk about how good horror movies kind of take things that are scary in real life and then add that supernatural component to it. I'd say that applies here, and that I mean, again, abusive relationships are horrible, scary things, and then trying to set that up as a premise for a horror movie, I think. It's just a pretty mind-blowing experience. But when it was over, I kind of felt a little disappointed with how it ended, and it just gets really weird, and it didn't make a lot of sense. But that's my honorable mention.
I've heard of that movie. I haven't seen it yet, so yeah.
Yeah. So that brings us to our one, and we actually found we have the same number one.
We do.
So
who's gonna say it?
Barbarian. Barbarian's our number
We're not gonna
one.
arm wrestle for it.
We actually watched Barbarian together a couple weeks ago or whatever.
Yes,
and,
we did.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what. It's just a great movie.
It is. I mean, because like I try not to be too spoiler-like when I'm reviewing things, but yeah, what could we actually share about this movie? Like the whole premise, the whole opening is just kind of like unsettling in itself because you have a woman, right? She's like expecting to do like a kind of like a job interview type of thing, right? So she like stays at an Airbnb, or she's going to stay at an Airbnb, and there's already a guy there, and then you're like kind of wondering, yeah, who's this guy and why are you here type of thing. And so many times in this movie, I'm just thinking to myself, get out of there. Just run, drive away. But then she did that, we wouldn't have a movie.
Yeah,
so
the actor that plays the guy, I can't remember his name.
Oh, yeah.
But he's really good in that, like, when you're watching it, you're like, is this guy, is he just a little awkward?
Yeah.
Or is he actually ill-intentioned? And I think having the Airbnb setup, it feels... It's like such a real thing that could happen. Like that doesn't feel like I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. You know, you go to somebody double books an Airbnb because they listed on a couple different websites or whatever, and like, what do you do? And then you get into the dynamic with her being just kind of scared to even go into the place.
And then like the whole time you're watching it, it's like, well, do you trust this guy? Do you not?
And so before you get into anything, you're already like, this is kind of a freaky premise.
Yeah.
And so
and then doors start opening by themselves, and then you're wondering what that's all about too, right?
Yeah.
Then it's just a creepy environment to be in, and it just gets creepier by the minute. Like I remember watching this with you. Because the beginning, it takes place at night, so you don't see the whole neighborhood or anything. You don't know where this location is, and then as you get further in the movie, I'm like, whoa, look at this place! Like, what happened here in this neighborhood? And then later in the movie, they actually tell you in like the most clever way, man. I was really like impressed with like the whole backstory, and it didn't take too much away from the movie because they have like a little element in this movie where they kind of backtrack to kind of tell the audience like what actually happened here, and like kind of like give a little explanation, and I felt like it worked really well with like the characters.
I know I said this as a complaint about some of the other movies on my list, but this is one where even when they explain it, like I thought it only gets more horrifying.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't lose the kind of fear factor. Like I felt like it was pretty creepy throughout. But at the same time, it does have a lot of conceptual, a lot of thematic weight to it.
Dude, and so much happens in this movie that, like, remember how I was telling you I was excited about this movie because Justin Long's in it?
Yeah.
And then Justin Long shows up, right? And they're like, oh, crap, I forgot he was even in this movie. Like,
I had no idea he was in it till he popped up.
Yeah.
He shows up a little, not late, but...
Once he shows up, so much has already happened, so you're like, wow, where are they going to go from there,
This movie wastes no time. Like, a lot of the time when you have a good horror movie, you kind of like the first half hour, you're setting up characters and stuff, and then you kind of gradually get into this one. I mean, it's from the opening shot, you're thrown into this awkward situation with these two. It's already uncomfortable. It's already unnerving. And I mean, the first, scary stuff happens really soon. It just wastes no time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop. Like Kenny said, they do kind of an explanation, but it's, even that part is freaky. There's not like just somebody talking at a camera saying, hey, this is what happened,
Not many jump scares in this one at all. I think maybe one or two. Like, because this movie didn't need it. Like, the whole environment alone, like, is just chilling, man. And I felt like it was awesome. So that's why it's my number one. I loved it. It was a great time.
So this was I think we both agree, this was a good year for horror. And and we're dealing with, a lot of these are, big budget movies, lots of people saw. I think a lot of the time to get good horror, you kind of have to go into some of the more kind of independent stuff. But this year, I mean, the big studios did their jobs. These were just good horror movies.
Exactly. And like, even the ones that were like controversial, like the Halloween Ends, and the Munsters, it gave me something worth talking about. Like I still felt like it was worth seeing, So that was our top 5 of like this year, and we hope that you guys enjoyed this video. And let us know if you want to see more like it. It's kind of like our first ranking type of movie, or type of video rather. We've done like some like music reviews and things like that, but yeah, just let us know if you're digging the content, and like and subscribe if you haven't already. Got any final words, my brother?
Yeah, hey, I wanted to mention, so I play in this kick-ass band called The Rage Below.
Really good.
Check out our schedule. I think Kenny's going to throw up a link or something on here. We just had our new single come out, so check it out. If you like what you hear, subscribe, and check us out on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. So
nice.
Again, The Rage Below. Check it out. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. They kick ass, you guys. All right, guys. Kenneth Ramon.
Eric Lawrence.
Signing off. Bang!